Pokemon is an international media franchise phenomenon that blew up after the release of the first Pokemon games, Red and Green, back in Japan in 1996. Despite having the adoration of millions globally, there are some out there who have run into issues with parts of the Pokemon franchise, from the anime shows to the video games and even the trading card game. So today we are taking a look at some of the drama that has spawned from the beloved media empire with our list of the top 10 Pokemon controversies. Let's get to it. And at number 10, pissing off PETA. Let's start off with a number that extends to the whole Pokemon franchise rather than just an aspect of it. For years, certain animal rights groups have had an issue with the depiction of Pokemon battles, claiming they resemble cockfights. Eventually, Nintendo and Game Freak decided to do a tongue-in-cheek mention of it in Pokemon Black and White. But that did not go over so well, because when Black and White 2 was released, PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, released a mock video game in response. It was called Pokemon Black and Blue, and in the game you control your Pokemon to attack the opposing human trainer. PETA would go on to claim that the way Pokemon are stuffed into Pokeballs was similar to how circus elephants were chained into railroad carts. Nintendo responded to this by releasing a statement that said, I quote, "Nintendo and the Pokemon Company take the inappropriate use of our products and intellectual property seriously." That did not stop PETA from releasing another game though, when Pokemon X and Y dropped, titled Pokemon Red, White, and Blue. As you can imagine, a lot of the criticism from fans of Pokemon pertained to wishing that PETA focused their energies on real animals as opposed to fictional ones. And at number 9, inappropriate dialogue. With over 2 decades worth of Pokemon games, there has been a whole lot of work gone into crafting each title. One of those aspects though has been criticized over the years, the dialogue of certain NPCs. Sometimes the dialogue may come off as strange or eccentric and it's just chopped up to the kind of trainer that you're facing. Other times though, it may seem borderline inappropriate, which is what got some parents all fired up, considering that the main demographic for these games are generally younger players. In the Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow titles, there is an elderly man in Celadon City Gym who is somewhat of a peeping Tom, noting that he's there to stare at the pretty girls inside. In the Let's Go titles, that dialogue was changed to him being there to see the strong trainers inside, with no mention of gender. Then in Pokemon X and Y, there's a swimmer trainer that you can run into who says, "If I'm wearing a bikini, where do I put my Pokeballs? Teehee, woman's secret." Actually, that is dialogue. You can see why that wouldn't bode well with some parents. Moving on to number 8, anime violence. Sure, fictional pocket monster violence is cool with most, but when it comes to humans being threatened with violence, that is no bueno for most parents. There's a handful of episodes in the Pokemon anime that ended up being cut from the English broadcasts. The initial intent for most of these scenes was comic relief, similar to how in Looney Tunes you'll see characters get squashed by heavy objects but then they'll be totally fine afterwards. But some of those moments still push the ballot a bit, including a large chunk of episode 35, in which Ash and the gang find themselves at the Safari Zone in Fuchsia City. The Safari Zone warden, a fellow named Kaiser, repeatedly threatens Ash and his pals with a revolver. Because of how often it occurred, the whole episode was banned. Most other instances involved a character being hit, like Misty hitting Brock with a log, or Ash getting hit in the back of the head by a Pokemon. But episode 35 had a whole lot of guns, so you can kinda see why it was cut. And at number 7, the epilepsy scare. In 1997, after the Pokemon anime was released, there was one episode that caused approximately 700 Japanese children to be hospitalized. Episode 38, titled Cyber Soldier Porygon, featured Ash, Misty, Brock, and Pikachu essentially entering a digital world, kind of like Tron, all thanks to Porygon. The whole shtick is that they become digitized with the help of a Porygon in order to stop Team Rocket from stealing Pokemon inside of transfer machines, in which it's explained that the Pokemon are digitized and that's how they can be transferred. But at one point in the cartoon, just past midway, Pikachu lets out one of his electric attacks, which results in digital missiles exploding, ones that were sent to eliminate a virus, which turned out to be Ash and the gang. This explosion was depicted through red and blue strobe lights, which flashed very fast, something that triggered epilepsy. Some children just experienced headaches, whereas a whopping 685 viewers ended up in hospitals. The show was taken off the air for 4 months because of it, and when it returned, that episode was never broadcast again. Moving on to number 6, Satanism. If you thought PETA's claims were outlandish, you'll probably find this next number to be a total eye roller. There's a handful of fundamentalist Christian groups who believe that Pokemon is linked to Satanism, and have accused the franchise of a ton of stuff. Here's a few. Pokemon are demons which are captured and called upon to perform tasks. Gym badges are like magical talismans needed to control them. Pokemon evolution has been criticized since it shares its name with the scientific theory of evolution, which fundamentalists don't believe in, despite Pokemon evolution being more of a metamorphosis. Some Pokemon have paranormal powers, i.e. ghost and psychic types. Pokemon causes homosexuality, and Ash and Brock's relationship was a sign of the cartoon's gay agenda. Right. And last but not least, since there's a ton of accusations, Pokemon involves East Asian spiritualism, and therefore some Christian groups denounce it as a pagan ritual. How does that even make sense? But it looks like the head honchos of the Catholic Church disagree. They addressed these claims by publicly approving of Pokemon, stating that the video games didn't have, I quote, any harmful moral side effects, and that it was based on ties of intense friendship. See, even the Pope likes Pokemon. I'm assuming there, but you know, he's a pretty chill Pope, so I wouldn't put it past him. Moving on to number 5, Nazi imagery. This next number is at least a little bit more tangible with its accusations than our last. The franchise has been accused of perpetuating Nazi imagery in both the video games and their trading cards. Let's look at the cards first. One of the Japanese cards, Koga's Ninja Trick Trainer card, there is a swastika visible. Now there's a solid reason for why it's there though. In Eastern culture, the left-facing version of this symbol is called an emote manji, a symbol of peace, which often is used on maps to represent Buddhist temples. Hitler, before World War II, had adopted it as his party's symbol since he believed it to be a connection to the Aryan ancestors who lived in ancient India. The international print of the card changed the symbol. Now in the video game, specifically the European releases of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, Pokemon Registeel's sprite had to be adjusted to lower its hand. Its arm was previously upright, which looked like the salute commonly used by Nazis, despite that salute being stolen from the Romans. Fun fact for you there, the Nazis ripped off a lot of people. There are also accusations of Nazi imagery in the Pokemon anime too, but we will leave that for another list. Moving on to number 4, Burger King. Nothing like the fear of a lawsuit to stir up some controversy. Pokemon and Burger King managed to avoid a potential legal battle once upon a time, although arguably blame mostly falls on BK for this one. In 1999, for the Pokemon movie Mewtwo Strikes Back, Burger King had a bunch of promotional toys as part of their kids' meals, which included handheld Pokeballs. Two parents started up a website called Pokemon Kills after their daughter suffocated from covering her mouth and nose with half of the Pokeball toy. Burger King responded quickly, recalling all of the Pokeballs and offered to exchange them with free french fries for a limited time for all those who had already gotten one of the toys. You can still get your hands on them today if you look on eBay, with open ones going for around $20 and full sets of unopened ones going for up to $400 American. Up next, number 3, Pokemon Go. The most recent controversy on our list comes from Pokemon Go, the hit mobile game sensation that literally had everyone glued to their phones while walking around in the real world, thanks to some nifty AR technology. Pokemon Go was met with a ridiculous amount of popularity when it was released, which resulted in a handful of issues pertaining to where Pokemon would spawn, and where players would go in order to reach these Pokemon. People were playing while driving cars. They weren't looking where they were going, which caused accidents, and people were trespassing all to catch the Pokemon they were hunting. People even were playing it in places like Holocaust memorials or memorials for 9/11. Developers had to alter the game so that Pokemon wouldn't spawn in specific locations such as those. One player in Russia, a 21-year-old vlogger, ended up getting a suspended sentence for 3.5 years in prison for blasphemy charges thanks to playing while in a church. In Belgium, a small town with a population of 35 banned playing it at night because it was constantly flooded with strangers playing the game. And in New York, registered sex offenders were banned from playing it due to the demographic of players that they may run into, potentially putting children in harm's way. There's a lot of other instances Pokemon Go stirred up trouble as well, so give us a shout in the comments below if you'd like to see a list on just that. Moving on to number 2, Uri Geller. Perhaps the most well-known lawsuit that Nintendo and Game Freak have had to deal with is concerning Uri Geller, a dude who claims he is psychic and became known for bending spoons. If that ability sounds familiar to you, it's because of the Pokemon Kadabra, whose official artwork featured the Pokemon bending spoons. Geller sued Nintendo for £60 million, which was roughly $86.93 million US at the time, claiming that the Pokemon was an unauthorized parody of himself. He claimed that the star on the Pokemon's head was anti-Semitic, resembling the logo of the Waffen-SS, which were part of the Nazi SS organization, and that, I quote, "Nintendo turned me into an evil occult Pokemon character. Nintendo stole my identity by using my name and my signature image." Now the symbols are actually taken from Zener cards, which are used to conduct research into psychic abilities. Kadabra was then left out of the trading card game and anime for a solid chunk of time, presumably because of the lawsuit. And finally, in at number 1, JYNX's Blackface. In 1999, which seems to be a hot year for Pokemon Controversies, an episode aired in North America for the anime called Holiday Hijinks, a holiday episode of sorts that featured Pokemon Jynx. Critics began to call out the series for the insensitive depiction of Jynx, who was compared to blackface, a derogatory racial depiction of African Americans that represent them as a caricature and is highly offensive. JYNX got quite an overhaul because of this. The sprites of the Pokemon were changed in the Western releases of Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal, and JYNX was removed from the anime. Later her design was altered, giving her purple skin instead of black, and the episode was banned from the US altogether. Alright, there we have it friends, what other Pokemon controversies can you think of? Give us a shout in those comments below, and let us know which ones from our list shocked you or surprised you the most too. If you dug this video, spread the love, hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe to Top 10 Gaming for more lists just like this one. In the meantime though, thanks for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.